in Canada, no one knew what grass-fed or organic was. And my dad was selling, we were farming very holistically. We were creating a lot of good nutritional value in our products, soya beans and beef at the time. And he was just kind of at his wit's end about the fact that he was selling this premium product into a commodity market. So that really is, that was his sort of push in his life, is how do I turn this inputs model that he grew up with his dad with into a more holistic model that actually produces an outcome of health and well-being and vitality, not just dying but actually thriving. And then my kind of version of it, or how I stepped up into the world, was to go, how do you make the business make sense? So that's all fine. You can do that on the farm, do wonderful things, produce great products if no one knows about it. Is it still true?
So welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Melissa. Melissa, why don't you give us the TLDR on who you are and how you got here?
Well, I guess I'll go back.
Go back as far as you like.
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm in Canada, in a rural place, and what some people find interesting is that I grew up in a Mennonite community, so religious, very sort of conservative religious type of community. So no television. We were very off-grid kind of. Ate from the garden, that kind of thing. And so it's funny to think now I'm running a tech company, but that upbringing has really shaped a lot of what I do now. And when I started, I started my first company at 17, and that was mostly in kind of how do you bring health and well-being to humans, and that was so that's the theme of my life really. And
what are you working on at the moment?
And what I'm working on at the moment is I have a tech company. Part of it does services, so we provide technology services to, increasingly that's data and AI, to primary sector sort of legacy industries. So, your industries like infrastructure that have lots of older tech and kind of embedded ways of doing things. And we sort of bring them on a journey as a safe pair of hands to kind of, you need to up your game. And the other side of that is we've spun out a product that helps the value chain articulate value from farm to consumer.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Awesome. And what came first?
What do you mean, which came first?
Which came first of those two?
Services.
So, services started, is how you started?
I started it as I know the theme of my life, which is, how do I help the value chain? How do I do that? And it was just early. I knew that it was not the right time, and so I said, well, how do I get into the game with it and make some money and kind of learn and do some things along the way, because I firmly believe sometimes capital just buys you time when maybe you should have just started later or done something different kind of thing. So that was a piece of advice that I was given, and it kind of made me think, like, I'm often a little bit early in most of the things that I do. Still probably early, but that's just the wiring. I'm always looking to the horizon and kind of where are we headed, and which makes me a founder. But
totally.
Yeah, so that's why.
Oh yeah, cool. So you mentioned you started a business at 17. What was the motivation?
My dad so we were farming organic grass-fed beef, and that was it's like 22 odd years ago now. So you draw your head back to that time. In Canada, no one knew what grass-fed or organic was, and my dad was selling. We were farming very holistically. We were creating a lot of good nutritional value in our products, soya beans and beef at the time. And he was just kind of at his wit's end about the fact that he was selling this premium product into a commodity market and not being able to support the ecological benefits that, in a financial way. So how do you make the farm make money, right? So that really is, that was his sort of push in his life, is how do I turn this inputs model that he grew up with his dad with into a more holistic model that actually produces an outcome of health and well-being and vitality, not just not dying but actually thriving. And then my kind of version of it, or how I stepped up into the world, was to go, how do you make the business make sense? So that's all fine. You can do that on the farm, do wonderful things, produce great products if no one knows about it. Is it still true? So I went to work at trying to figure out a way to produce a product. So we knew how to produce it. How do you get it to consumers? Do they care? So I kind of, the theme of my where I fit in a business is usually at that like the front of the wave where the consumers are like probably friction aware but not solution aware. And so they're probably at the time there was a lot of people who are starting to experience these health issues that kind of like mainstream medicine didn't really know what to do with, and they start to go seeking. And when they went seeking, I ended up having my first customer base, which was basically people who had cancer, Crohn's, colitis, diabetes, the whole lot. And actually our meat was the only thing that they could eat without getting sick. And so that was the kind of first adopter. So it was a real like almost PhD in how do you launch a category creating type of product into a market. So
you're working in the family business, or did you kind of like...
I started a new kind of arm of it. So the family business was farming.
And then you were selling meat to consumers.
Yes, and so we did direct to consumer, took meat online, which was pretty wild at the time, and developed the whole value chain. So I had to find the butcher, the abattoir, the transport, set up all of that situation. So it made me also really aware about the changing landscape of the consumer. So if we cast our eye back to sort of the 50s, right, you had like middle America, and there was sort of like, they call these like niches, but they're not really niches, they're sort of like groups of people, and you could market to these large enough groups of people, which they were big enough, you could make a lot of money.
Right.
As time went on, we realized there's actually small little niches, depending on where you're saying it. And so then there was a opportunity in that space.
Yeah.
Where we're headed is actually like this niche of one. And it's really interesting because yesterday at the conference, she was what her role was, Facebook's head of business AI.
Okay.
And she's said, and what I've been saying is that we're headed to this niche of one. How do you target a consumer directly to them and have it be the most personalized experience? And they're playing with that now. So they're now able to produce an ad that's personalized to you. And it's the craziest moment, right? So that's what's happening, is that as we're going, and I sort of was in that early phase of realizing how unique consumers were, I started to become what I call like the one-woman algorithm, because I had started to scale up. I had lots of farms, and then I had lots of consumers. I had chefs, I had restaurants, and I had to match the sort of attributes of each of the farms and the practices and the claims on each farm to the different types of consumers.
Okay.
And so that was the light bulb moment.
Yeah, and how long did you do that for?
I started at 17, so that was my first registration of a company. I was doing it sort of ad hoc before that, but I did that all the way through university and then till when I got here. So I was probably about 8-9 years.
Wow, so it's a full cycle of the thing.
And it still goes today. So that's sort of the mission was, how do you decouple? So how do you know you're in a value-added space or a premium space? It's not that you are a little bit, you'll know this in investing, right? How do you get in real terms a value increase? You're not actually riding the cycle of the market and just a little bit more or a little bit less loss. You're actually decoupling yourself from that commodity cycle. So if the market's doing this and you can show that you're doing something completely different, that's what the aim was, is to go, here is our product. The market's doing whatever it's doing, but we're building relationship with end consumers that over time we grow deeper in relationship, and we actually produce more value over time. And so that was the promise. I always paid above schedule. We never went back down to schedule of beef for the producers, and we continue to build relationships with consumers over the time. So
that business still exists. Did you sell it?
No, it's run by my sister.
So it's run by your sister,
and it's enabled my brother to really grow more of his operation. So
in the farm itself.
Yeah.
So your brother took over the farm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So you've kept the asset.
Yeah, it's in the family. It's been in the family for a long time.
Right.
Like, I think reportedly 200 years.
So, okay, that's a long time.
It's a bit of a
really
long time. So there's a lot of pride in there.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. You don't want to give that up. Okay, cool. So then that just still runs, and you just moved out here. So you moved out here.
Yeah, I moved out here. Well, part of it was my first business was the value chain distribution stuff. And then I realized I kind of had a moment when I woke up and I thought, I get to wake up and have cow's milk from the cows, eggs from, and this is my life, and it's pretty privileged, right? And I thought, how do I share that with people? So I started doing dinner with the farmer's daughter and bringing them in and cooking food for them and actually getting them in the experience of what real food tastes like and why we do it the way we do it. So that, and then I was also doing an artisan Jersey milk operation.
Okay.
So at that point, it was my dad had to figure out what he was going to do with the farm. He'd always sort of, in his maybe subconscious, thought he'd probably give it to his son, and rightly so. He was, and I feel for him because he would not have expected to have 3 daughters also want to farm, So in a way, he was far more successful in his mission than he would have expected. that he actually passed on the passion, right? But it's only 100 acres, so you can't really slice, into too many patches. So I was faced with this choice of what do I do with my life, and how do I reinvent some things. And so I love rugby and I love cows. And so where would I go in the world that has rugby and cows? So yeah, it was. And I thought in New Zealand, I'd been here to train for rugby previously. So it was a little bit familiar. I knew like one person, and I could, any kind of experience I thought I could learn and actually apply back to, and then come back home at some point and apply it to another sort of industry. I just needed a wee break because I had built so much identity in that space. So I really tried not to do that. But I can't. It's sort of that's my biggest advice to founders is if you don't have to do it, you shouldn't. But unfortunately, despite trying to not do it, it still finds me. So
specifically the farming.
The food, the health, the vitality, the wellness. It is a bizarre obsession.
Right. But it makes just staying on the path a lot easier.
It does.
If you're forced on there by
sort of like some sort of like other serendipity or something. Yeah. It does it. Yeah. Sometimes I feel foolish, like should I just have done... I often look at other entrepreneurs and go, oh, you've really found the moment, the timing, the opportunity, the gap kind of thing. Being what I would call a mission-driven founder is a very different type of thing.
Okay, yeah. So you moved out here, you liked cows and rugby. And like... What was the process? Yeah, what was the process like? Like a working holiday visa?
Yeah, to start.
Yeah, okay, that's standard for a
and
Canadian
I'm an entrepreneur, but I don't have all of the like exit money so I couldn't do the entrepreneurial visa. So I didn't qualify for that. So I had to figure out ways to stay here.
Right.
And kind of get specialist skills visa.
Right.
And then COVID happened, and that all changed. But just prior to that, I'd actually successfully launched a permanent residency visa.
Okay.
So I did eventually get to that place, but it's been a long journey.
It takes a long time.
Where it doesn't have to. Some people can apply from live at home and arrive permanent resident.
Yeah.
Just my specific combination of there was an application I submitted where I had to provide evidence that I was not making it up, that I had run companies and that I was an actual like specialist in this area.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating journey.
Yeah, it took us a long time to get permanent residency.
Did it?
Yeah, we were on a number of visas on the way. For sure. Starting with the working holiday visa.
Yeah, I wonder if they do some user testing after their user experience journey immigration New Zealand.
I don't know. They probably could. I mean, the working holiday visa seemed like the easiest thing in the world.
It is, yeah.
Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is a really good scheme.
But other than that, I think it's pretty hard.
And that's changed again as well, yeah.
Okay, so then, did that mean you had to actually pick up a bit of work?
Yep.
Or have you always worked... You did have to pick up some work.
Yeah, so I worked for other people. I kind of had my first real job here. I was selling advertising for Bauer Media.
Okay.
When they were on Wellesley Street.
Right,
so I literally trained in Auckland, and then they said, you need to move to Christchurch. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I had no ties to anywhere, so sure.
Yeah, cool.
So I was the only South Island sales rep for 2 magazines.
Okay.
And I literally got to drive around the South Island talking to farms and farm adjacent type people. So
right, to try and sell
them advertising in a print magazine. Okay. So that was but I guess that was the easiest job I think I'd ever had.
The easiest.
Well, because I can spin a yarn like no one's business, and I know these types of people, so I know how to talk to about their life, which is I think the only reason I got the job is that I could speak to the audience. Type. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, it was. I think they probably took a punt on me, but I think they had not been able to recruit anyone else. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So and then you started your agency at some point.
Yeah. Well, then I got a job working for a software agency.
Okay.
And it was actually a mentor of mine that said, you'd be really good at being a business analyst. And I was like, what is a business analyst? So I'd never heard of the job, never trained in the job, never anything like that. But I feel really bad saying this. I took to it like duck to water. It came really naturally to me. I have a systems brain. I understand these things. So when I learn a new language called a tech stack and a database structure, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. So it was not hard for me to work out how to piece the puzzle pieces together in technology to produce solutions. Yeah. Because my brain thinks in business problems. Yeah. And then I had to learn the language of technology, but quickly did that. Yeah, right. So that was really fun for a while, designing applications, enterprise solutions, all of the challenges that come with that. Kind of like, almost seems like an era gone by now of the full software stack. Yeah. Because we're moving rapidly into a shrunk technology stack. So. Right.
Okay, and then so you did that, and then you made a choice to. Did COVID happen or something?
It did, but actually that wasn't the kicker. It was sort of this realization that I was designing applications for the health industry. And I was like, this is really similar. All of the drivers, the frictions, the challenges around data, these kinds of things are all really similar to the domain that I have an expertise in.
Which was the primary sector.
Yeah, and I looked around and I kind of didn't see a lot of activity happening. There was a bit of like a void of technology people who could speak primary sector technology and business, like those languages all together.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we went with an offering of services and kind of got some really big enterprise customers to start, which really allowed us to not take on any loans.
Yeah, default alive.
Be straight into existence straight away.
And what did that look like as the startup kind of situation? You got those, did you hire after you'd already sold?
Yes, yeah. So you had to kind of like sell on the belief and the expertise, and then I knew where I could get developers from, and so because I worked in this space, so I kind of knew where the expertise was and how we would do that a little bit. Cool. But yeah, it was a little bit of riding a little bit blind.
Yeah. Okay, but so you managed to get up and going. You managed to sell in order to avoid debt or raising money. Yeah. And get sustainable. And how long before you then started looking at building your own product?
Pretty quickly. We did a lot of what I would call in-house learning. So when we had a job come in, what about that is applicable to this value chain problem that we have? Yeah. We did some during COVID. There was grants for students, and we would put research problems forward. And so we did a lot of desktop research. We piloted some really cool stuff 5 years ago now, where we did machine learning around predictions of yield for red meat. Yeah. We also did predictions of consumer preferences. So how do we algorithmically represent a consumer's preferences?
Yeah. What's your favorite cut of steak?
I've moved to venison, and so now we hunt a lot, and I can go into why, but I didn't realize the nutrient value of high country venison. Okay. So venison or anything in the high country has a diversity of food sources, and that in and of itself actually creates a completely different nutrient profile in the meat. Okay. And so it's a fascinating, and I didn't really realize that until just life circumstances. I kind of ended up living on venison for about a year, and a whole bunch of my health metrics started to shift. And it blew my mind. I was like, wow. So yeah, and weird how life has parallels, because now we're working with Lincoln University, and Pablo, the researcher, he's the first in the world to create the link between soil health, plant health, animal health, and human health.
Right.
At a clinical level, so not just in kind of like meta research, but actually doing blood testing and understanding what are the disease indicators that go up or down when you have meat or milk from these animals raised this way.
Right.
And so now I can like actually have evidence that supports what I've experienced. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, so moved on to venison now. That's a random thought I had.
Yeah.
Okay. And were your existing customers the customers of this new product that you built internally? Or?
We thought they might be, and they still might be. What we're realizing, so we've built it, the assumption is that you want a value add. And New Zealand talks about this a lot, right? We probably underestimated the inertia of the existing system they have to fill processing facilities. And so that takes precedence over any kind of conversation around how you might produce value.
Right.
And in New Zealand, I wouldn't say we're flush with marketing capability or the kind of creativity around that. So different to an American market where he or she that thinks most creatively wins. Like the thing, you'll notice the products that you can find in those places are just almost sometimes absurd, right? And the claims and the value propositions, you're like, how is anyone paying money for this, right? And so that creativity doesn't necessarily exist here for lots of reasons, but the desire to create unique, differentiated products is there, but we have like a really strong inertia towards a commodity system.
Right, and basically switching from existing.
Yeah, the assumption is for our product to be a fit for a company is that they'll want to mine their existing supply chain for value they haven't yet found, and how would you produce more value for your consumers and customers, and it's in that B2B space.
Right, and is there a big low-hanging fruit you guys find that you get with your product?
So in the US specifically, if you're a processor or a brand, and I say that slightly interchangeably, you have to buy from, say, up to 5,000 farms, and you have to sell to all the retailers, and they all have their versions of standards. So this is the Whole Foods version of regenerative, or the Sprouts version of sustainable, or et cetera, et cetera. There's also then the sort of like trust marks so are you regenerative organic, or are you these other various types of things. So where we're finding traction is being able to simplify that. So kind of like giving you the pre-green tick. So you know what you do, an ISO standard evaluation.
Yeah.
Automating that. So using farm data, publicly available data, system data to be able to then tell you where your gaps are and where your risks are. Be able to automate some sustainability reporting, which is kind of was all the rage for a while. People build teams around it, but now we can automate.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the starting point for a lot of companies. And then to automate the B2B value proposition as opposed to having a whole marketing team. So when you're saying I have to sell to these 10 different retailers and 10 different brands, how do I make my supply chain story relevant to those people and do it in a more systematic way?
Right. Okay, cool. And what's the sales cycle like on that?
Long. It's new. It's really a category. It's a new category. So there's a couple of people in the space, a couple of companies that are, and mostly they're in carbon. So they're like, we'll calculate. So everyone goes, do you calculate carbon? And I'm like, I mean, we can, but we mostly ingest that data to be able to turn it into a process. So in the same way that AI is people are grappling with what is AI, how can AI help me with my business? We are really in the throes of this, where we're kind of moving from when we had a fax machine process to an email process, and you kind of, to quantify that ROI would be hard, right? It's like when you're moving from I send people information through fax machines, and now you're going to do it through email, right? And that was like this, like for people to shift, it took a bit. And we're proposing a new way of doing many of the jobs that currently are done.
Is it hard to get onboarded, or?
No, but people perceive it is. So there's a lot of, again, sort of paradigm inertia. They go, oh, but I have to give you all the data. I'm like, the fun thing about new tools is that they can be structured and unstructured. So all the barriers that existed before don't exist now, but people still are stuck in that time when it was hard.
Yeah, right.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So it's quite, because B2B is in such an interesting space because you have to, there's this long tail of
Long
basically
sales cycle,
implementation and long sales cycle. However, you can get away with doing things like pre-selling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because which actually it makes kind of the capital requirements much easier when you've got a consumer product.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly hard, and it's not that it's less hard on B2B, but it is. It has a different challenge because you're more concentrated into your customer base, so you have concentration risk.
Yes.
Whereas obviously you don't have that incremental concentration risk with a B2C business.
That's right. Yeah. But you're sort of like cost of customer acquisition is not as you can't put as much effort into getting the one.
Yeah, it's such an interesting kind of dilemma. But I do like the process of B2B sales.
Yes.
It just seems tidy,
Yeah.
although very variable in outcome.
Yeah,
you have with Acuity, if you have a bad demo, that client, is gone maybe.
It's really hard to rebuild trust in that situation. Yeah.
True. But you're not doing a 9-month sales cycle for it to not go through at the last moment, which is tough. So it's a interesting space. And selling to the primary sector is such a good idea, though, in this country.
Sort of.
But yeah, basically you've got this huge opportunity, but then you might have this inertia issue around kind of actually getting it.
Yeah.
So your biggest barrier is how do you get them to taste some of the value?
Yes, that's right.
Without as quickly and as painlessly as possible.
Reduce the friction, right? And that's where we're actively right now, kind of like how do we reduce the friction and how do we create belief in advance. So our sales conversation, we're actively looking at this right now, is like how do we show up to a sales conversation with it mostly done?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of like a brain buster for people to go, oh, this is what we did.
Calculators are often great, right?
Yeah.
If you can work out a way to build some sort of... it's not really have to be a calculator. It's just that any interactive tool that has an output that makes someone feel good is quite a good way of trying to start.
Or produce a risk. We had done a calculator, which was kind of like, what is the complexity? Like, what is your backstory risk? So are you able to actually back up what you say?
Yeah.
So in that era of greenwashing...
that's a great
people
but that's it's a bit of a funny topic though, right?
It is
because it's confronting
and they don't want to really talk about it, but it exists, and so we're kind of like shining a light on a thing they don't want to talk about, which makes us a little bit of the bad guy sometimes. So we're just navigating these waters, which is why I think being able to do the pre-green check and kind of that certifications. I really do think we're moving quickly into a post-certification era. So like what used to be the trust, I guess, stronghold around organic and fair trade and that kind of thing is fastly being eroded.
Right.
Fastly is not a word, but quickly. So now we were talking about this, like we're kind of in a post-trust era, right? So everyone just goes, I don't know, I don't care what it is, I don't trust it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's this
deep fake space. And if that's happening, how can you distinguish on a shelf when everyone says they're organic and your brain kind of goes like...
And the terms change all the time.
Yeah.
Like now it's non-caged. What does that mean?
It's so funny because like when I was 22, I made an attempt to write a book, and I PDF'd it because that's all I knew how to do at the time. But it was called Unlabeled. So how do you as a consumer look past the labels and actually buy according to your preferences? So this is like almost 18 years ago kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so again, way ahead of my time, right? That I was starting to realize this was becoming a very increasingly complex space.
Yeah.
how does anyone red-blooded human turn up to a supermarket and know what it is they're buying? And you kind of have to be a farmer's daughter to be able to go, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're so now disconnected from our food supply that the consumer doesn't even know which way is up. Or it doesn't have a grounding framework to go kind of, why would you say that your meat birds are cage-free? Because it doesn't make sense to put them in cage, kind of thing. So you're sort of like, that's a little bit of like your bullshit factor should go off, right? So these kinds of things are part of the reason why I feel passionate about the value chain, is because we have a really broken system kind of at every step, is that we get a sort of a wrong message back from the consumer because the consumer is so confused. So what they buy and what data tells us about what they buy, can we trust that? Is that actually what they think? Or is that only a function of what's available? And so there's really not good information out there, starting to get better. But I assert, and to anyone who will listen, that the pre-decision space of the consumer is not known.
Right.
AI is getting there, and for the first time ever, we're going to understand what they say they want.
And what impacts does that actually have on decision making and preference? Because that is going to change things.
Absolutely,
it's going to make things very different, right? And how people choose to trust, how people are going to evolve their thinking, because this is all happening very quickly.
Yep.
Is your product exclusive to New Zealand, or do you have clients overseas?
Yeah, so we have projects running overseas right now where we're actively pulling in data and kind of going, because it's the same, right? It doesn't matter if the only thing that needs to be true for you to use our product is that you have to aggregate from a raw material source. There's lots of cases around. So we have a investment fund that owns lots of farms and different types of farms, and so that reporting function is historically been quite expensive to do, and so we have.
So you've reduced that for that fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And they now get access into a whole lot more metrics, more than carbon, and they can and they don't have to pick a certification because it didn't make sense to pick a certification, because the certification kind of like boils up a value proposition, right? But it doesn't allow you to report on different things. And so the understanding of what's actually happening and where the impact is being made is obscured when you use a certification. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess 5 years from now, like how many farm are you selling? You're not selling to farms.
Processors and brands.
But processors and what would success look like in 5 years from a kind of processors and brands kind of rough number, do you think, in your head?
The weird part is it actually doesn't require a lot to make some really good like tipping point change. So if we have 100 processors or brands, it changes how food is transacted.
Right.
And we're starting to see that. So there's an almond group, almond buyers and almond growers and processors. Processors have successfully gotten to these buyers who want really cool value propositions, but they want different value propositions. So they're trying to match up these attributes and these data points.
What would a value proposition be?
Let's say in the almond space, do you compost? Do you use sheep? Are you pesticide free? Are you pesticide low? Are you different types of pesticides? Do you use different types of biologicals? Are you increasing nutrient density? Do you have sort of cover cropping? What's your soil testing? What's the health of your humans? So in those high intense pesticide type crops, the ingestion of chemicals is often a risk. So societal challenges. There's lots of ways that a brand would want to tell a story about ethical almonds.
Right. Okay.
Fair pay.
And basically that could be across basically any commodity, basically.
Yeah.
So you focus on a commodity and then reporting against that commodity and how it came to exist.
Yep. And how do you kind of tell stories that are unique and different? How do you not lose the farmer story inside of that? Because that was really the first learning, is that once I started to aggregate and grow beyond my farm, I all of a sudden had 5 different stories, and that's when I had to become the matching algorithm, is to go, I have Susie who cannot have any, she's got Crohn's and colitis, so it has to be grass-fed, grass-finished. but I've got Mark, who's the restaurateur, and he really wants a large fat cap. So in Ontario, Canada, trying to get grass-fed, grass-finished with a large fat cap is next to near impossible. So often you'll finish on some sort of grain.
Right.
And so that was the largely grass-fed their whole life, finished on grain, but not corn. So that became this these matching things, right? And people will go, no one really cares. And I go, okay, then why do we still have farmers markets, and why do consumers go out of their way to, in North America anyways, on average, go to about 5 different places to buy food every week?
Right.
So if they don't care, then why are they doing this? And we do have a lot of evidence, and there's a company in Canada who's now measuring this, that is basically telling retailers, here's the dollar spend that you're missing out on, because that customer has gone to these other places and they're purchasing to this level, not at your shop, right? So we do know that there is a dissatisfaction with what's on offer.
And how many individual commodities are you guys working with now within that product?
We're actually largely in meat at the moment,
Yeah.
and looking to go to fruit and nuts, because there's probably a premium space in there. Meat has lots of fun dynamics, and they operate slightly differently in the sort of processing space. So it's just the aim is that we learned that the aggregation point really kills any ability to differentiate, and as a result of that, humans suffer, farmers suffer, planet suffers. So we really, if we can unlock this processor space where agriculture becomes food, then there's a real major shift to happen as to how consumers start to interact, buy, and demand different things of their food. So
it's very fun.
So it's not short of challenge.
No, you've got so many opportunities to report to farmers on information. Well, not farmers, but any producer or brand, what they want to hear or see.
Yeah, well, I think that was the other dynamic, is that there's lots of agri-tech that's kind of cropped up, right? So that's been a real sector, but it has not ever kind of flipped over into being utilized in the value chain, because there's a major capability gap in that processing space. So processors don't know how to pull it in, interact with it, understand it, turn it into value. So that's what we do, is we make it useful and then create a market for those agri-techs.
Yeah, I guess what's the revenue kind of breakdown then of the, not numbers, you don't have to give me revenue numbers, but is there a lot of implementation revenue still to this day?
No,
or is it a subscription?
It's really boring in that we're not even selling data. We're just literally creating capacity, and so we're building in a sort of brain for that processor or that brand.
And there's a cost to that?
Yeah.
And it's a monthly cost?
Yeah, it's a monthly cost.
And is there an implementation?
At the moment, there isn't. Over time, it may be, if they get more complex. But
okay, so it's a relatively simple sales cycle in that regard then. Because I wanted to end, because you managed to basically start yourself up without external capital of any sort, right?
Yes.
Whether that be debt or whatever. And before you had necessarily the team and everything like that, and you kind of had built up, but you were in an environment obviously where you felt comfortable, which was obviously the mixture of tech and primary sector. If someone was looking to get started and do something very similar, where you're actually able to go and pick a niche and pick a subsector and go hard at it and build some initial momentum. Did you door knock? Did you randomly cold call people? How did you make that deal happen, I guess?
In the beginning?
Out of nowhere, that
relationships. I was curious.
So did you already have the relationship?
No, I went to conferences. I talked to people. I kind of I'm passionate, so it kind of comes out of my pores.
Yeah.
Then people started to call me up because they kind of remembered that I knew some things. So that was probably advantageous. If I were to do it over again, I don't know what I would do different. I think I was passionate, so that came through. I think that kind of gets you so far.
How long did it take you to know that you were starting the business and you got your sale?
Probably about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you survive in that year?
I had a job. So
great.
Yeah.
So you didn't quit your job.
No. When you're an expat, you can't.
Right. True. Yeah,
so
true.
you're not really like in the luxury of like, I'm going to go live at mom and dad's and I'm just going to go hard at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you just
Do you think that is... Because like a lot of people talk about going all in. But now I'd say there's now a reverse, a little bit of a shift where people are going, actually, you don't necessarily need to go all in.
Agree.
And you can have a more systematic kind of approach towards building up your business and keeping more of it for yourself, ultimately. And I guess you would be an advocate for that.
Yes.
For sure.
I think so. I think there's a world in which
obviously that both circumstances can work, right? And like, it's for the individual
you have to
situation.
figure out what works for you, right? Like that's I think you're smarter later in life, but you often have family and sort of overhead to handle. So that changes what you can and can't do. When you're younger, you might have more risk capacity, but I don't know. I think I see a lot of people coming out of university who haven't lived life, who haven't been in jobs. And Joel Salatin is a kind of like the godfather of farming in North America. And he often says whenever they would hire anyone, they would say, you're welcome to have opinions about what we do and change stuff, and that's what we want, after you understand why we put the fence there and why the gate is closed. And I think there's something to be said for that, is to be curious early in life and to experience stuff that doesn't work. You know, I've mentored a lot of university startup programs, and I'm disappointed at the in ideas that come out of that because they haven't been in manufacturing or, you know, places where we need the most innovation. So they haven't had jobs in boring old industries which need their brains. So they come to me with like the latest version of Uber Eats, and I'm like not interested that you can get cafe food from the university easier. That's not a problem worth solving for humanity, kind of thing, right? Where the most interesting ones I find are like farm kids that grew up with their dad who was a welder, who's come up with a really, like, you know, very obscure kind of upbringing that has exposed them to stuff. So I think there is definitely a case for...
What would you say then to someone then that it's going to be harder for them necessarily to get that exposure? Because I think you're seeing a real hollowing out
totally
of two kind of age demographic kind of vibes, right? You've got the middle management / manager, older Gen X kind of demographic that are basically being culled unless they're the business owner.
Totally.
And then you've got obviously university students that are coming out with debt or, you know, whatever, and, you know, there's no role for them because AI is basically disrupting it.
Yeah.
And then obviously, guess what? Actually, millennials have a lot to be thankful for because...
Weirdly, the tables have turned.
all of a sudden, completely right time to thrive.
Yes.
So I've got like a keynote on that whole millennials. How millennials don't realize how good they've got it.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't have any debt.
That's true. Like, I think this is going to be a real challenge that I think society is going to have to grapple with, is we're going to have, like, the generation coming through is just not going to have hands-on experience, and they're going to be digitally native without understanding the real world. So, like, the unpopular opinion I have is go work on a farm, go do stuff with your hands, go get a trade qualification, because that's actually something that...
Well, you just have to accept that when you were just coming into the process of studying, it was just pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then you saw a bunch of people graduate and get really cushy jobs.
Yes.
And now you think that, like, you're going to be in line for that, but that is just not going to happen. You have to basically find a way to find experience.
Yeah.
And that's like the key piece now, is that if you don't have a project that you have delivered yourself, don't expect any business owner to give you that. So find a way to persuade them to let you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Gary Vee talks about this. He's just like, just get after it, do stuff, like get out there, fail, like try something. And unfortunately, you don't have the ability to get kind of like probably an entry-level job as you could before. And
so how do you basically skip that? Because that first hurdle, and I was speaking to someone about it yesterday. I mean, that's why as a business, like, we are very passionate about people building equity for themselves.
Yeah.
And building equity for yourself means patron equity, which is that if you go and do something, you treat yourself like an owner so that you can get that real experience and that upside.
Yeah.
And how do you design, because if the cost of delivering an hour is now going to close to zero,
oh my gosh,
how do you build a sustainable environment for yourself to actually exist with the resources you need?
That's right.
And I think the only rational pathway is to focus very heavily on having skin in the game, owning equity, and finding your own ways to generate lived experience.
Yeah, I think so. That is going to be the challenge of our time. I was walking here and I even texted my partner. I said, can you remind me never to be seduced by all the biometric stuff that my phone can do for me?
Right.
Because the cost of that is so high. Like the laziness seduction is everywhere, right? And so we're going to be in a place where we actually have to go and like say no to the convenience in order to be able to thrive as humans.
Totally.
And we're seeing that now, like gym, food, so you have to say no to everything that is kind of going, it'll be easier.
Yeah.
And you actually have to go and
Naval Ravikant, I don't know if you know him, you know him well, and he talks about easy choice, hard life, hard choice, easy life.
Totally.
And that's basically it.
Yeah, it's like the complete, and this is hyper novel, right? And as far as human species go, is that like we now have to use the prefrontal cortex to override the like efficiency pathway.
Yeah.
Which is so bonkers that we're here, right? And we're here.
Yeah, we made it.
So,
awesome. Well, thank you so much for
That's
taking
great.
the time in between your conference.
Yeah, thank you.
And your trip. So thank you.
Yeah, it was
Appreciate
great.
it, Melissa. Cheers.